Welcome to the Right Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Williams, best-selling romance author, book coach, and founder of Serenade Publishing. I've been an avid reader ever since I could hold a book, and I've spent a decade immersed in the world of writing, editing, and publishing fiction. I know firsthand what it takes to turn a love of storytelling into a sustainable, soul-aligned author career. Each week, I share real talk about writing fiction, marketing smarter, and staying inspired, along with up-to-date industry insights and the strategies that are working right now. You'll also hear from fellow authors, editors, and industry experts who are out there doing the work and making waves. Here, we put the woo in the work of writing, publishing, and growing your author business. Think of this as your creative business pep talk, packed with heart, hustle, and a little bit of magic. So get cozy and join me. Your writing journey starts now. Hey scribe, Sarah here. In today's episode, we're pulling back the curtain on something that every single author needs, but not enough of us truly understand, and that's cover design. I'm joined by the incredibly talented cover designer, Holly Dunn, and trust me when I say her process is not the norm. Because Holly doesn't just take a brief and create something pretty, she actually reads the entire book before she designs the cover. I know, revolutionary, right? And what that means is that her covers don't just look good, they feel right. They capture the tone, emotion, genre, and that intangible spark that makes a reader click buy now. In this conversation, we're diving into her creative process, what she's looking for when she reads a manuscript, and how she translates story into visual language. We also talk about something I know is on a lot of your minds right now, AI. Where it fits, where it doesn't, and why human intuition and storytelling still matter so much in this space. And of course, we're tackling that age-old phrase, don't judge a book by its cover, and why in publishing, that's exactly what readers are doing. This episode is going to shift the way you think about your book's cover and hopefully inspire you to treat it as a powerful storytelling tool it really is. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Right Podcast, Holly.
Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to discuss covers and trends and all those good things today. So thank you so much for taking the time to share. I would love to know, what trends are you seeing in genre fiction right now?
Any particular genres you want to talk about?
Well, let's talk with romance. I know when I first started out, we were, couples, real people doing all the kissing. Then it went to kind of these cartoon covers, which I don't know. Do you see those ones phasing out anytime soon?
Well, they seem to be selling very well at the moment. So I can't see publishers and indie authors sort of moving away from them just yet. While they're still doing well, I think that will continue. Things in publishing tend to go pretty slowly in general. So I think we've got a bit longer to ride this wave, yeah.
Yeah, I still look at them like Icebreaker and I go, that looks like a rom-com.
Yeah.
Not a rom-com.
Yeah, it's that sort of awkward line with YA as well, which is tricky because a lot of these are rom-coms, but they're adult rom-coms, right? They're but some of them can look a bit like YA, and that's where I think indie authors in particular need to be careful. Like publishers can, if they do a cover like Icebreaker and a few people get upset about it, they can weather that. But as an indie author, it's a lot harder. So I think the main thing there is making sure that your characters look old enough. Because I think that the Icebreaker one is interesting because I feel like it's kind of borderline. Like to me, they look like adults. But at a quick glance, if you're not looking at it critically, I can see why it could be misconstrued. But they have done extra work as well. I think it's the tagline on it is something like it's super spicy or sizzling romance or something like that.
Yeah.
So there are other things you can do to kind of cue the reader.
Yes. Yeah. And then with fantasy, we've seen a lot of the borders and the beautiful font types. Then we also get the symbols. What are your thoughts on those kinds? Do you love designing the fantasy covers like that?
Yeah, I do. at the same time, I think we're moving again more towards maybe having some characters on the covers, depending on the genre. Maybe more so in YA, we're seeing a lot of characters on the covers in fantasy. It tends to have a particular look to it, a lot of dark colors, like one brighter pop of color, some interesting, a specific type of typography that's usually quite embellished. Yeah.
So, how much should authors actually worry about staying on trend?
I think it is quite important. I mean, there's, as I said, things do tend to move quite slowly in publishing, even in the age of TikTok and being able to finish writing a book one day and putting it up on the internet the next day, kind of thing. But I think that the main thing is signaling to your readers that this is something that they're going to be interested in. So that's where comparative titles and comparative covers come in. When I'm designing a cover, I will always look at as many examples as I can of covers that are for the same audience as the one I'm designing for. And we really want the cover to fit in with those, so that when you're scrolling online or when you're browsing in a bookshop, you see the cover and go, yeah, this is within my realm of tastes.
Yes, absolutely. So you've been doing cover design for quite a long time now. What should authors, particularly we're talking indie authors here, what should we look for when choosing a cover designer?
Yeah, it's obviously there are a lot of things to consider. The main one for a lot of indies is the budget. So, for instance, I do illustrated covers, and by virtue of me having to make everything from scratch, that does cost a bit more. But there are more cost-effective options like pre-made covers, and there are a lot of cover designers out there. The main thing to look at is the cover designer's portfolio, like what covers have they designed, and then say almost more importantly, who have they worked with. If they've worked with bigger publishers, that's a good sign. Say that's a green flag. But I also don't want to throw other designers under the bus. If you're starting out as a designer and you haven't worked with one of the big 5 publishers, for instance, that doesn't mean that you're not good, but that would be one thing to look for. I'd also look at what other authors they've worked with and how well those books have done, and you can kind of look at the Amazon and the Amazon ratings and things like that. Again, there are lots of factors that go into that, so that's not a sort of hard and fast rule either. There's always a lot of nuance here. But the other thing is like how they work, if they're doing custom illustrations, custom typography, whether they work with stock images, if they work with AI as well. That's obviously a big factor these days as well. And I know a lot of authors are wanting to avoid that. I imagine you've probably got questions about that later on. Yeah, so a lot of things to consider, but think about your budget, think about what the genre of your book is, and if that designer works within your genre. Because I mean, I have people approach me asking to do stuff, and I'll just have to say no, it's not within my expertise. There are plenty of people out there who can do it, but I don't really do crime thriller type books. Doesn't really suit my style, but I do a lot of cozy fantasy, a lot of romantasy, romance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So I know I've worked with designers in the past who basically just say, what do you want? And I have to tell them what I want, but I am not a graphic designer. So I always feel like, I don't know, maybe something like this. And I look at other comparable covers, and then I feel like I would rather have a designer come to me with the ideas and to be able to work through it together. So what is your process when you are working with an author?
Yeah, that's certainly how I work. So I start off, and this is quite unusual. Like most cover designers don't do this because it's time consuming, but I read the manuscript first. And I found that I didn't always used to do this, but since I started doing it, I feel like I understand the stories so much more deeply. And, sometimes these days I'll do a cover and the manuscript won't be ready yet. And I do always feel like when that happens and I have to go off a synopsis, the cover always suffers for it. So that's the first step. And I have a series of questions that I'll ask every author, things like the genre, target audience, technical things like the size of the cover and the spine width and all that kind of stuff, where they're going to be actually publishing, if it's through Amazon, if they're doing a print run, that kind of thing. And then I go into looking for comparative titles. So this is very dependent on the genre, obviously. Sometimes it's really difficult, and occasionally there are no comps. That doesn't happen too often. You can usually find something that is similar enough in audience. I've actually done a whole course talking about how to find comps for cover design. It's a little bit different for how you would do it if you were, say, pitching a book to an agent or a publisher, because we're talking about the visual language here. But so that's quite a big part of the process. And then I'll move on to doing concepts, which start out as sort of scribbly sketches that I wouldn't want to show anyone because they don't really make sense to anyone but me. And then I'll refine the best ideas into something that I can actually share with an author without them thinking that I'm totally incompetent. These are usually in black and white as well. And depending on the package that they've decided to go ahead with, that will depend on how many concepts that we have. Usually it's pretty clear, choose one of them. Sometimes it's combining a couple of them together. Like maybe we like the typography on one of them and we like the rest of the design on the other, so we can switch out the typography. Then turning it into something really beautiful. This is the exciting part, is where doing the proper line work, bringing color in, and turning it into something that can be printed.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do special edition and foils and those sorts of covers as well? Yeah, are you loving
do. Would you like to see a few of them?
I would love to.
I didn't pick out any books in particular because I didn't know exactly what you were going to ask, but I'll grab a few from the shelf. Cool. So I do some for book subscription boxes, quite a lot actually for the special editions. I'll start with showing you this one here that I did for A.K. Mulford.
I have that book.
This is one of my favorites. Very purple. Do you know Ali?
I do, yeah. And she was at the Sunshine Coast Fiction Festival last year, and I bought it off her there.
Oh, you! Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I've done a few with Ali and a few with Ali and Kate, the writing duo. So we've got the dust jacket that looks like that, and then underneath we've got the foil, which is always my favorite thing. I get so excited about foil.
It's gorgeous.
But
and so that sort of thing, do you create the fonts yourself?
Yes, so it's all hand drawn. Well, I say all. I didn't do this is an existing font, and then the lettering is all me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this one I actually did a map for the end papers as well, which is, I always like to talk about maps because
yes,
they're one of my favorite things to do. And I'll just show you, I've taken the dust jackets off these ones. I just did the case binding, but these were for Illumicrate. And again, we've got shiny foil. But I was so thrilled they went with this concept of having the sort of 3 secondary characters on the spines, and then the primary characters are on the front. And they do actually all sort of match up. I don't know if I'll be able to hold them all up. See, there's kind of a band of magic that goes across here that goes together for all of them, but I don't think I've got enough hands to hold them all up.
You do the edges as well?
Yes, sometimes. Do I have any edge examples? Oh yeah, so this is one I did for Bookish Box quite a few years ago, and that has
beautiful
sprayed edges or painted edges.
Yeah,
so do a bit of that kind of thing. I do love doing special editions because then we get to play with really exciting things like foil. I actually did a sort of special edition. It was a print run, so rather than going through Amazon, so we had some more options, and I'll just show you. This is a biography of Dick Hubbard, who is a New Zealand businessman who's now retired, but he founded Hubbard's Foods. Yeah. So we wanted to make this look like a cereal box, and there's a cutout.
Oh my gosh.
I was so thrilled to be able to do this, and kind of you've got like the kind of nutritional information on the back. It's all a bit tongue in cheek, and that was really, really fun to do. So you are kind of limited when you're just publishing through Amazon, but when you get to a print run, there are lots of exciting things you can try.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been talking about that a lot on the podcast recently, special editions and these covers. They're just such a beautiful work of art. My bookcases now are all just like trophies.
Yeah.
So many beautiful special editions. So, and I think that's so interesting. So let's talk AI. What did you have to do? Go to design school, or what sort of qualifications did you get?
So I didn't actually go to design school. I studied art history and English at uni, and then I finished uni and I went, oh, I'm kind of sick of studying other people's art. I want to make my own. And as much as I love the analysis and everything, I started working at a bookshop after uni, and one day I looked around and went, hang on, somebody has this job of making all these covers, and that sounds like the best job in the world. Why don't I try and do that? So that's, and then basically I just started putting a portfolio together. I had some experience doing art and graphic design, no sort of formal qualifications, but nobody's ever asked for my qualifications, to be honest, either. So it's it really is to do with the portfolio that you put forward. And yeah, I was fortunate enough. I put together some designs, some illustrated covers, and an art director from HarperCollins in the US reached out to me and asked if I would license them one of the designs that I'd made. And that was that was my first published cover. And that was enough to make me think, okay, yeah, I think my work probably is good enough to be able to make this a job. And it took a long time. It took about 8 years until I could do this full time.
I'm always so jealous when I see people who can draw and, even things like calligraphy and that sort of thing. I just think it's so beautiful and I wish I could. And maybe if I sat down, I could self-teach myself too. But then there's other more talented people out there to do it. So.
And also you're killing it when it comes to writing. So
we all have our own zones of genius.
Exactly.
So I know that when it comes to translations and narrating and cover designing, the human touch is always going to be the gold standard. That's, what we always want. Obviously, a lot of the authors who are coming out now are very budget conscious, so they can certainly go to pre-mades. I've bought pre-mades. There's nothing wrong with pre-mades. And then, of course, there is the AI that you can play with. I've never played with AI, with designs and stuff like that. Do you find it really easy to tell the images that are AI, the book covers that are AI? Like, you would just know, wouldn't you? I would be useless. I wouldn't be able to tell.
There are probably some that are flying under my radar, but I feel like it's usually pretty obvious to somebody who does this for a living, Yeah, and we're seeing more and more of them popping up, on the Amazon top 100. Yeah, and I do think that people in general and readers are becoming more aware of what AI art looks like and are becoming a bit more discerning. At least I would like to think so. I think writers and designers are really in the same boat here. And what I say to authors is you can play around with these tools and you can use them for a book cover. There's nothing legally stopping you, maybe morally stopping you, but when it comes down to it, is that what you want representing your book? Because we judge books by their covers. That's why we have covers on books. Otherwise, they'd all just have the title on there. And, if I see a book with an AI cover, my first assumption is that it is also written with AI. And I think a lot of people are going to be thinking the same thing. I've had arguments with people on the internet about this, saying, how dare you say that how dare you assume that it's written with AI when the cover is AI? And but you've got to think about it from the reader's perspective and what people are expecting these days. And I think it's a very fair assumption to make. If you haven't bothered to invest in the cover, and I'm not saying that you have to spend a huge amount of money. As we said, pre-mades exist. People were able to create budget covers before AI came along. We have stock imagery. There are lots of options out there that don't involve using any of these large language models.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think are some of the most common mistakes that you see on covers these days?
Aside from using AI?
Aside from that.
You know what? The number one thing I have, and I have a secret Pinterest folder full of covers that are like cover mistakes. And, you know, some of them are really beautiful. They have gorgeous illustrations, but the main thing is I can't read the jolly title. And that is a big problem, because you think about people shopping online, people viewing books on TikTok, they're usually looking at this very small thumbnail. And if I can't read the title, there's something wrong. Yeah, so that's the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I will do is say, look, we do have to consider, like, we want your book to sell, basically. That's what the cover is for. And, you know, you're spending all this money, let's make that count. At the same time, I totally understand, like, this book is your baby. And I am very empathetic to authors who want their book to look a certain way, and they want to love the cover, because that's one of the benefits of being an indie as well, is like, if you're working with a publisher, a lot of times you don't get a say in your cover. It's, you know, it's handed over to an art director and a marketing team, and they'll show you the final result. You might be able to say, I like it or I don't, but a lot of times it's not up to you. So, and I'm aware that, you know, they're paying me directly, so I want to make something that they will love as well, but also that sells their book, because that's the point of investing money in a cover.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I guess we can also say here that it doesn't have to be that same cover that you stick with forever. Like, I've changed covers a couple of times now. So perhaps if you do have to start off earlier with a pre-made or something that doesn't work, you can always change it. That's the joys of being an indie.
It's fantastic. I mean, you see publishers doing this all the time as well, even from the hardback to the paperback. If the hardback doesn't sell as many copies as they had hoped, then they'll often change it.
Do you have any final advice that you would like aspiring authors to leave them with?
I mean, I guess finding a good cover designer is really important, but you're never locked down to one single design. And yeah, you can try different things. And also trusting your cover designer. If you've found somebody who really understands how covers work, has worked with a lot of authors and publishers, and is sort of living and breathing this industry, trusting them to know that, like, what is going to work for your book. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Holly. I really appreciate your time. I hope you loved that conversation with Holly as much as I did. What really stayed with me is this idea that a cover isn't just decoration, it's communication. It's a promise to your reader about the experience they're about to have. And when that promise is aligned, when the cover truly reflects the heart of the story, that's when the magic happens. Holly's approach of actually reading the book reminded me that the best creative work always comes from connection, from slowing down, paying attention, and really understanding the story you're trying to tell. And whether you're working with a designer or creating something yourself, that's something you can take with you. Your cover should feel like your book. Also, our conversation around AI is such an important one to keep having. Tools will evolve, trends will change, but your voice, your perspective, and your story, that's the part that can't be replicated. So don't be afraid to own that. If this episode sparked ideas for you or made you look at your book a little differently, I'd love to hear from you. Come and connect with me. And if you're ready to take the next step with your writing, whether that's developing your idea, strengthening your craft, or finally finishing your book, you can find all the resources and programs at serenadepublishing.com. I'm always here to support you. And I'll see you next week for another episode of the Write Podcast. Thanks so much for listening to the Right Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, it would mean the world if you'd leave a review and share the show with your writer friends. It helps more creatives find their way to us. And don't forget to follow Serenade Publishing on Instagram and TikTok for more writing tips, publishing advice, and exciting events to keep you inspired. Keep writing, keep dreaming, and know that I'm here to support you every word of the way.